drive along with the um, people, sort of understand, uh, do we need to go talk, start a signature campaign, and then, if possible, take them for a collector's grievance. Or so the thing is, like, it's very clear that we need to start working there on the ground and then see what could be the next thing. And one other thing also was, uh, around COVID time, the central government initiated some scheme called ABRY, Atmanirbhar uh, Bharat Rozgar Yojana, some for the PF scheme. So the employer and the employee PF, the government itself will give for 24% or something like that. But it's only for 2 years, and after that, the employer should give the 12%, and the employee give the 12%. And so in Forest Way, our organization, many people got registered. Like, the employer registered almost all of them, and now there are about like 100 people under that scheme. But about 2 years back, 2023, some people started resigning due to their personal reasons, and they are unable to get that money because the government is saying that used the funds, and then since then they have frozen most of these accounts. So, and we don't have a PF regional office here. We have to go to Vellore, and so there are various other things. Looks like it's a clear writ petition sort of a case where there are. At least in our organization itself, there are 10 women who are like more than 60, resigned, and then they are working. They are having a petty shop or something like that, and then they need that money, at least 50, 60,000, which is unable to get, like, for last 2 years. And how do we really work on this? Probably after this class, it's very encouraging for us to really work on it. Don't know how soon we'll get, but myself and Tilo are like wanting to do something for this as a first stand itself, with not just outsourcing it to somebody, but working through this till some people get to see their money. Yeah. These are two different things.
Yeah, under the PF Act, the Act itself has provisions. There is a provision for appeal, and there's a PF tribunal. So yeah, if you can just get in touch with
Oh,
us.
it's very weird actually, because they have a grievance mechanism on their portal itself, EPFI GMS, and then that portal always it gives an output saying that, oh, server is busy. And then I've taken the screenshot. I visited the PF office, and they say every 27th of the month we'll have a PF grievance in different districts. And then you go there, and then again they say, oh, this is a procedure, you go and do this. And in Vellore office itself, they are saying, we have verified and then started releasing 50 accounts money, but the central government has given us an order on October 2024 stating that don't release any more funds from this account or for anybody with ABRY scheme. And they are just showing that as an excuse that we can't do anything, and they are saying come after 3 months. And just PF, they have a SOP which has released in the PF website, which says how to freeze and defreeze the accounts. And anybody can actually freeze, but defreezing can happen only by superior officials based on the amount of money the employer is signed up for. But then the SOP clearly mentions that within 30 days the defreezing should happen, and the defreezing has not happened for more than 2 years now. This is just like our Article 22, where even if it's an arrest, there is a procedure which the administration should follow. Here, the procedure itself has not been followed. And I've been looking at, was there any case laws or something? Looks like none of the judgments had come regarding this. Probably there are cases which are pending and which are sub judice. I don't know, but looks like it's a clear violation. And so many people in Vellore itself, 2,000 people have been affected, but only in Vellore regional circle. And this is something, a massive thing for the employees all across India, I guess. It's a definite class action. So if we start with Forest Way itself, 100 people are there. 100 people, it's not that they want the money now, but even in updation of a nominee details, bank details, Aadhaar, nothing is impossible as of now, but money can be deposited into the account. Only you can't withdraw. And that's weird. So probably if I just stay in PF office for 2-3 days and then ask for anybody coming here, I'm going to help you, and PF office will get really irritated with me for doing that. But I don't know how to pull in people for this.
If you have 10 people, 15 people, organize a protest outside there. That's the best way. And once word goes around, people will come. Anyway, let's
Yeah,
get
sure,
into
sure.
nitty-gritties.
Thanks.
But
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're seeing the linkage between what you've learned here and direct action and also court processes. Okay, thanks, Sendil. That's nice. Okay. Floor is open to others. Anyone?
Shall I go?
Yeah, please.
Oh, when I read your questions in the group, I felt you are very greedy and making us accountable after these classes and to come out with actionable items from our side. I was thinking that. Okay, then the three questions you posted, I think each question has a linkage to one another. Especially the first question, I thought I actually I don't think any particular issue, but I felt the constitutional values to be inculcated among the people as much as possible. That itself is an issue to be addressed. I felt when because when we inculcate the constitutional values or the values given in the preamble, that itself will address I think the part of the problems in the society in the today's context. So in that way, I felt that itself is a issue or agenda or item to be taken in hand. How we or I can do it, probably as a group from Vasa people also, we were talking quite often about taking the constitutional values to schools and colleges. After the study class, I felt really we have to jump into action and start initiating that, because after especially reading about the object resolution and speeches given by Ambedkar and Jawaharlal Nehru, all that, I think really it is very, very urgent to start doing that. So that's it for the first question. I think for the second, other things will go around later.
Yeah, thanks, Shakti. Arvind, come in whenever you feel like. Yeah, for those who came later, in what way did you find the classes useful? Has it helped you get an insight into issues? Are there issues that you think you will take up? Sendil talked about an issue relating to PF scheme for unorganized workers that was started during Corona time. Shakti feels that we have been very greedy in getting information from you all about what to do. Now, let's be interesting to see what others are thinking about it.
I can go. I have to confess, before this class started, I knew that there were two classes in parallel. One is the Paulo Freire and the Constitution class, and instinctively I went towards the Paulo Freire class, because honestly I did not, at that point, I did not actually see what I would learn from the Constitution class, really. I'm being extremely frank. And now it has been really transformative. I know that word has been used in the description of the class, but it actually has been transformative in terms of, how you think about things and how I think about things as well. It's also given me a framework to think about things differently. For example, I was always puzzled about I wasn't very clear about, and still I'm not, about the Universal Civil Code and the pros and cons and things like that. And then there's something that was mentioned in the class about, a gender just code, which is potentially what we are looking for. But how, Universal Civil Code has other overtones and so on. But then I realized what I was searching for, that the word was something called a gender just. is what I was grappling with, and what I was in favor of. So it has clarified my thoughts a little. And what is also stunning foray into just a rights-based approach. And then you start seeing things differently. You start seeing like rights violation within the home. You start seeing in daily interactions, you start seeing inequality in daily interactions, which you knew, but now you can exactly say, hey, that violates this particular principle, right? I'm also seeing how among children, and even among the large population of the public, extreme inequality like the levels that we are seeing today is actually considered normal. No one is really alarmed about it. So if you go into like a regular classroom in the US and say, hey, there are 3 categories of extreme inequality is not really questioned. It's not seen as an issue. And this idea of treating unequal people equally, I think the inequality is very, very hidden, especially in a society like the US. And I think what I plan to do, hopefully, is to have these conversations in student circles in the US, starting with the school that Uday is in, and run these games and kind of, for example, US struck down affirmative action, right? And that is considered the right thing to do by the large majority of the public. Most people rail against taxes, so the mantra of no taxes, no services does not really hold water with most people, right? So I think there's a need to take urgent need to take these constitutional values to the younger generation, and I'm hoping to do that when I get back. And also we are working on making some course that is accessible to US students, just so that they can start speaking and learning about about how progressive the Indian Constitution is, and how much. So it's been very transformative for me. Thank you.
Is Subhashri based in the US?
Yep, I'm in California. Yeah.
That makes me just wonder. I was sort of hinting in the thing I put in WhatsApp. Are people familiar with this global justice now? And is it? I mean, is there a global? Is there an actual global justice association of lawyers, or is there such a thing?
We wouldn't know. I came to know about it after seeing your post.
Yeah.
But we can
Because-
start one if there's nothing.
Well, there is a need, isn't there? Because people everywhere, ordinary people, are aware of the injustices in the world, and our politicians don't seem to be able to do. We come up with these leaders like Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, and they're not going to put the world to rights. So there's a place for solidarity, it seems to me, in the justice, in the realms of justice and health. I mean, that's, yeah.
There was also one very concrete change that happened. I have never really expressed my opinion in a public forum, much. And there's a WhatsApp group in my college group. I dived right into it, and a lot of the things I was coding was straight off this course around taxes and wealth inequality and so on.
Mike, do you want to go since you're on unmute?
Oh, so I mean, when Senator, when you were talking, I think you were you mentioned transport as well. Did you mention about transport? You were complaining, and you know that's a huge issue the world over, isn't it? And the world is absolutely choked up with cars, and you know public transport has been neglected. I mean, for a century, it's been neglected, and you know it must make a significant impact on the climate and everything.
Yeah, but here in Tiruvannamalai, I think Tiruvannamalai per se did not have any local transport as efficient as any other corporation, and Tiruvannamalai is considered a corporation now, like has been declared a corporation recently. And one other thing, what happened all across Tamil Nadu, at least it is not very visible in Chennai and other cities, but some of these 2-tier and 3-tier cities, towns, villages, where right after COVID, many routes have been cut off, and then so many people started buying two-wheelers and cars, and two-wheeler is on the rise, but autos is also a lot. Many of these autos are running under huge political clientele, and then all the auto drivers have to pay a lot of rent on that. So it's in the interest of these political affiliations that they don't want the buses to come. So, but this genuine case of a huge settlement of these two gypsy colonies, like one is Irular and the other is the Narikuravar community. These are two tribal communities. So when they have been given land and then building houses, so after the housing, earlier they were in a route where buses were frequent, but now they have to walk 3-4 kilometers after the resettlement. And since the resettlement happened right after COVID and the buses did not operate, people started sort of accommodating towards this. But now everything is normal and it's much more busier, but the transport has not been given. And it has been considered a norm these days that if we have a two-wheeler, you should rely on that. You can't expect the government to run buses for you. It's more like an accepted norm these days. That's very disheartening to see.
Any others would like to add to? Would you like to share your experiences of the classes? Did it make a difference? Any new insight? Any new issues that you'd like to take up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for this opportunity, first of all. Every class or a meeting that I attend, one thing I look forward is to how to continue to work on. Because it shouldn't be just at the level of attending the classes and getting the knowledge, because it is no use, it is not going to be used. There should be something that we could do at a personal level, which is going to be like a communication from our end to the public. That also should be in an organized way. Because most of the people or whatever, whenever we learn something, we would want to convey to the others, but that may not be in an organized way, which would, where we'll be able to track the result or follow up and focus on the people. We won't know what to change in our approaches. So that should be in an organized way. To take the constitution to the public, I think maybe because I am accessing the content in English, where I am working in, people are only familiar with one language, Tamil language. So I think I'll be able to translate it to them and make it in a make it like a content where it is easily available for them for the pressing issues that they have to focus on. And I had this idea, but I did not know in which way I could do it. since the beginning of the class, we were having a particular schedule where we took one topic and then the other topic was related to it, which is an extension of the previous topic. So this class has given me a way in which we could conduct. It's not like a class we are going to do in public, but it will help me to follow a particular procedure that has already worked here. So with this experience, I'll be able to know which one to start first, how we could relate it to the other events, and what are all the historical background related to it. What are all the leaders that people will find amusing to learn more about. And just as we discuss cricket matches, movies very much in detail, I think we have to discuss the nuances of the constitution and the day-to-day affairs, the oppression, the problems that people are facing also in detail. But when we just talk, it is going to be like a chat. But if we go in detail and talk about the technicality here legally, with what the constitution has to say and what people have already foreseen about it, that will get the people to learn more about it. It will make people curious. Currently, I'm not able to point out one particular issue that I will be urgently focusing on because there are day-to-day violence happening against minorities and vulnerable population, and that is too much to pick just one. But wherever I am based in, wherever I am working in, I'll be able to focus on that issue, and I intend to continue with this. Thank you.
Can I just quickly comment on Nandini's point before I forget it? It's an important one in terms of how do you translate the constitution in a local context, in a regional context. And here I don't just mean the language question, right? You can translate perhaps what is being said in Tamil or in Kannada, etc. But in terms of the metaphors or ways of thinking which you find in your own particular regional context. We were discussing this again in the Karnataka context, and the idea that, can you think of, say, a constitutional value which can be communicated by maybe literature, maybe poetry, maybe film as well. Right? And so will make a very rich repository. If you think of a simple point, right? Think of a value, say dignity. How do you communicate dignity from Tamil literature?
Exactly. Actually, that is what I was thinking about the dignity one, because whenever we say something in the constitution, there are places where it is mentioned as citizens and persons separately. So when we just say something randomly in a conversation, people may think it is applicable only to their villages or their social setup, maybe because of the caste or because of the corporation or whichever way they are functioning. But they should know when dignity is something that is a concern, it is a matter, that is something that is applicable for everyone as a person. I'm just thinking about the dignity in that way, because we have to associate it with all the morals maybe we have in the Tamil literature also. But this kind of translation, I think people need. When we simply say everyone should be following this particular rule or they should be walking on this side of the rule, it will not go into them that deeply. But when we are in English, it is very clearly given in the constitution when we read, and other legal documents we read. That is why I think English is better language for legal drafting. Maybe for native languages, there might be some ambiguity. So we have to talk about it, and so that they'll also develop interest where they'll be able to learn and be able to at least understand the language of the law.
Maybe I'll just give one example. I don't know if I've given this example before, but in Karnataka, for example, people keep going back to the Basavanna tradition, right? The 12th century Bhakti poet, and how there's a kind of overlap, right? You talk about the value of secularism, but you can actually talk about secularism using the language of Basavanna. And that's important because it reaches wider sometimes than the language of the constitution alone. So to always think about how we can communicate constitutional values using regional contexts, and that might be a useful way to think about it.
Actually, now that you are mentioning, when I just joined the bar in here, we have a Women Lawyers Association in Madras. So until then, the women lawyers are generally seen as not being so serious about the profession, and the judges used to just say that, oh, they appear and then they disappear, this kind of attitude towards women. So the Women Lawyers Association was also in many ways, reinforcing that same kind of an image of women, where the entire time the association was just used for, during any puja, carrying out some puja in the room, inviting judges to participate, that kind of a very unprofessional approach. So during the annual days also, there used to be cultural programs where women lawyers used to dance in front of all the men lawyers and judges, and they thought it was a big privilege. So that was essentially the culture. So when we joined the profession, some of us then decided we should change this entire, approach. The women lawyers should be seen as professionals, and how do we then go about it? So while we don't want to junk the annual day celebrations, but how do we change the content of the annual day celebrations? So then we came up with a skit talking about, the discrimination faced by women when you enter the profession, how it's very difficult for you to join a office, these kind of things. So there was a skit. Then we had songs of Bharatiyar, where we were, the Vidudalai and, Pen Vidudalai, all these songs are there, where Bharatiyar has sung many songs on women's liberation. So as a part of an orchestra, we had all Bharatiyar songs instead of having some film music. So that was something which everybody could immediately identify it. So now that Arvind was talking about it, I'm just sharing how we used it.
So in fact, one thing I was just thinking, even if by the end of this, I don't know, starting from this course, this class, as it were, we think of, say, resources in each language, right? Tamil or in Kannada, but not as just a literal translation, but as a culturally rich kind of exposition of each of these ideas, Like, I'll just make the secularism idea just once. So again, so people get a sense of what one is thinking of. Secular idea we all know, but Basavana, the way he put it, again, the poem, which is very, very famous in Kannada. Actually, interestingly, every school child in Karnataka knows this poem. It goes something like this: the rich will build temples for you. What shall I, a poor man, do? My arms are pillars. My head a golden cupola. Listen, a lot of the meeting rivers. The moving ever shall stay. The standing ever shall fall. Standing being the temple will always fall. The moving is the people, the bodies, or people will always be there. And so the idea of secularism comes through very different metaphor, which actually people get because it's so much a part of people's culture. This idea. So we failed. At least in Karnataka, we failed when we keep talking about secularism. Don't connect it, to these richer cultural traditions. So there's a way in which I think we can do that in every regional language. So that might be very, very interesting to do.
Go ahead, Jacob, if you want to talk.
Yes, yeah, I can. Yeah, I was grateful for this class because it gave me a framework to understand, the problems and challenges we see and how constitutional values address these challenges. So one thing that especially stuck out to me was how, the Constituent Assembly, considered so many different problems and challenges that we still see today, and we can go back to the Constituent Assembly debates and such to as a resource. So one issue that's been on my mind are the anti-conversion laws. So like I live in Bangalore, and a few years ago an anti-conversion law came into being here in Karnataka. So, this like poses a threat to, freedom of conscience and, and freedom of religion. And I've noticed, I guess, in my own circles, like there's a lack of awareness about these anti-conversion laws and the importance of the freedom of religion and such. And I'm talking about I guess I'm in, just like Christian circles and church circles and things like that. So I'm just thinking about how to, raise awareness about, anti-conversion laws and the importance of freedom of conscience and freedom of religion and how and the importance of constitutional values. Yeah, I'll stop there.
No, just a quick point, Jacob. We'll share that report which we did, I think Karnataka had said. It's called Criminalizing the Practice of Faith by the PUCL Karnataka, actually. And it does go into the Constituent Assembly debates on this particular dimension, And it was useful in at least raising the awareness, at that moment on this particular issue, going into the, as you rightly indicated, the Constituent Assembly debates. And I think I don't know if we talked about this, but there is a Supreme Court judgment which legitimizes the continued criminalization through the understanding of the word propagate. But that should be looked at through the lens of the privacy judgment, which comes later. So just a resource to go to is the reading of the Puttaswamy judgment and how the Puttaswamy judgment can be a way of overcoming the hurdles posed by the earlier Stanislaus judgment, just on a specific point. I'll send the link to that report anyway.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. Thank you for pointing out that connection. It's between especially with the privacy judgment.
So who's going next?
Shall I? This is Satya. Yeah, I agree with Subhashri and Nandini. I would say that it's very not just interesting, it's very transformational for me too. Though I've had few opportunities to engage myself with works related to constitution, literature, like translation or development of some literature in Kannada. But this is the way the whole sessions were constructed and the course was constructed is very helpful and transformational for me too. Especially, I feel the difference between citizen and people, that's very primary, but most of us do not know. We talk about lot of people talk about constitution now and the preamble. As Suresh was mentioning, it's world over, but in India, after the CAA and NRC agitation started, right from common people to activists to the politicians, everybody talks about the constitution and the preamble. But I doubt if many of them or most of them know the difference between how constitution addresses citizens and the people, the difference that it makes, or how the rights are given. Because the very when the preamble is, I'm sorry, I'm not very conversant in English, so I will take a little longer to put forth my thoughts. in when we translate the preamble itself, it says we the people of India, but for many years it has been translated as we the citizens in Kannada. Even now, though we have made that, we've brought out that difference, and we tell people, they say it's okay. There's not much of a difference. I feel there is a lot of difference to understand the entire constitution and the rights and all that, because it may look very small thing, but those are very important, is what I felt. And this kind of knowledge is also was given to us, and that's very commendable, I felt. And about the current issues, there are so many, I mean, umpteen numbers of issues that really affecting all of us on a day-to-day basis, right from within the family to our neighborhoods to our common interest groups or education institute, wherever we are. But right now, what I felt was I would like to engage myself, if there is any possibility, to form a coalition of people of, say, South India, to address this issue of delimitation and the language policy, which is extremely necessary to safeguard the federal structure of constitution. I felt that is the most, for me, that's the most calling issue. So I feel neither of, maybe the Tamil Nadu government has taken up the issue, the chief minister, but I don't think the political parties will be able to lead this, because each political party has its own interests in each of the states within the South India, and they're different, because Congress is fighting DMK in Tamil Nadu, but that's Congress is here, which has kind of, to push out BJP, we brought in Congress in Karnataka. So, and it's a different case in Tamil Nadu and Andhra and all that. So I feel the people have to be made aware of the situation, how this delimitation and the language policy issue are going to affect the whole federal structure and our rights and our duties and our constitutional privileges, or even the right to education will be highly affected by these things. So that is one issue where to form a coalition of people to raise their awareness of these issues, and that is where I would like to involve myself. If there is any such efforts happening, I would like to be part of that. Or if we want to, like, if there are other people who are interested in this, maybe we can start brainstorming on that. That is one area. Regarding the second question, I would like to work with any organization or institutions that's already working in taking constitution to teachers and school children. I'm keenly interested on that. I can help in development of content or translations. I do a lot of translations, so I can help in that. That's the area where I can see myself. And when I'm talking about the translations, I would also seek advice or guidance from the three of you on if there are any other literature that needs to be taken into different languages. For example, I was quite interested about Achyut Chetan's book on founding mothers of the Constitution, that book. And I listened to many of his talks and many of the interviews also. I also came across another lady, sorry, I'm forgetting her name, Sakshi or something, who has written a similar one, but I haven't delved in more detail into her book yet. So I was just thinking, if you could please advise me on, those are really remarkable things that needs to be read by people from all other languages. So if you can advise me on that, I will be very happy to take that kind of a work also, which can take many years, but that's something that we should do in our lifetime, is what I felt. The last thing is nowadays politicians and the celebrities are taking lot of prohibitory orders from the courts to stop media from publishing their misdeeds. That's one thing that's bothering me. And also, I mean, many media houses are also fighting, but media houses have a right of expression, and we citizens have a right to know, because they are public figures, especially the politicians. And the recent case of Prajwal Revanna, that has really bothered many of us, and the way the whole family, including him, his uncle, his parents, all of them have taken prohibitory, I think I am not using the right word. They're like, it's taking immunity from this thing. So that is curtailing people's rights to know, because they're elected representatives and we have every right. I mean, how to get this thing, that so that such things, such prohibitory orders are never given to these elected representatives, especially because our rights, people's rights, are much more important than their right to hide their misdeeds. So is there anything that we can do that can have an impact across the country? So these are the things. Thank you for your patience listening and the time given to me. Thank you so much.
These are wonderful ideas, Satya. I think just adding to also what Arvind was talking about Basavanna earlier. I mean, we can form a small subgroup here, and we can look at local proverbs, local stories, local type of sayings, and cull out from them those which have a constitutional value embedded in them. They may not say this is the constitutional value, like the story of Basavanna that Arvind was talking about. No. But there could be stories that we could, and when we talk that language which people can understand, the messages go very fast. They can go very deep. And these are things that we have been using earlier. I used to take a lot of classes on the Constitution. So we used to have a separate one where we put together proverbs that we use at home, sayings that we use at home. Now, on a reverse way, also stereotypes of people are also things that we can put together and use to talk to people about how unfair the current society is, which Ambedkar wrote, which Arvind was talking about. The Constitution and its values are essentially on a soil which is essentially undemocratic. That soil continues to remain undemocratic today. Look at the number of honor killings that are taking place in India, all across India, and particularly in South India. So there is never a dearth of new ways of taking the Constitution and its values in terms of messages to the people. And we will need to continually keep working on them. So if you can take the charge of doing it, we would all like to help you and be part of this process.
I also thought Satya's point was another one as well, which is to say that what are the resources there in English which should be taken to regional language, you know? And so that's the other point I think Satya is raising to us. Achyuthetan is one example, but other such books, resources which come up, which you can point to, which we can, which you think should be translated, for example, into regional language directly, right? And part of that might be just in terms of what we just already discussed, which is the Constituent Assembly debates. Right? Part of the Ambedkar's opening speech, Ambedkar's closing speech, Nehru's speech, those are not readily available. That should be readily available in regional languages. That would be one starting point.
Also, I'm going to overload you all, but let me share this thing. If you remember, 2 years back, the government of India banned the Popular Front of India. It's called PFI, and at that time, none of the political parties, including the left political parties, were wanting to come out and issue a statement against it on constitutional terms. You see, they felt scared that if we talk about the banning of PFI as unconstitutional, we will also be banned. That was the fear. Arvind, I, and some of us, we came out with a statement in which we argued based on constitutional values and constitutional history, saying that we do not agree with this party and its politics, but we do assert that that anybody in terms of the right of speech and expression do have a right to put their point of view, so long as it is not inducing violence, so long as it is not, imminent violence is about to take place. We came out with a very detailed statement. We can share that statement with you all. Any of you, if you want, please direct message either Arvind or me. Now, this statement that came out had such a big impact that at least 3 major political parties called us and had a discussion with us, wanting us to explain constitutionally why we were arguing that it's within our right of freedom of speech and expression. And Satya, the point that you raised, that the citizen has a right to know about the decision that the government of India made to ban PFI. Right or wrong is a different matter, you see. And after we clarified that raising the constitutional objections is well within our protected rights and you don't need to worry, then they came out with the statements after that. You're saying just an idea has so much potential for change and has so much potential to push people to take stances.
Yes, I do remember this issue. I mean, it was not party to any of the discussions or such, but it was observed widely. When the political parties later reacted to it, it was observed, yeah. With the constitutional debates, I was just thinking if there is any way that we can connect those, like Arvind was saying, that to bring the principles, connect the principles with our reformers or sayings of the in the literature. If there are any ways of bringing those constitutional, some of the selected ones, connected to the current issues and then refer it to that. So that would be an interesting way for people to know, like for example, Uniform Civil Code. We talk about the Uniform Civil Code of the Jharkhand government, and then we say how it was discussed in the Constitutional Assembly. Something like that, if a set of such issues are identified and connected it to a constitution, and then we can bring out a compendium of that or something like that would be interesting, is what I feel.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I would be willing to join any discussions of that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's nice. Ravi, Advika, Geetakshi, Abhishek, Abhita.
I'm Sendil.
Yeah.
This class, I learned new things. Though we are having a background of political activism, often we use this fundamental rights, all those things, but still I could learn new things out of this series of lectures. One thing is about this constitutional morality. We often quote Ambedkar's first speech on the social democracy and political democracy. But when it comes today, we often criticize the constitution from the left perspective. But after this class, I see this constitution, the values of constitution is, more than the values, prevailing values in the society. So it acts as it ferments over the society to emancipate it. So the constitutional morality is like the future. It's a visionary constitution. So the it is ahead the society. So, and one more thing, the product of freedom struggle that so that is also an important point. Why we say save constitution now, and also with this light we can see I mean, the viewpoints of Periyar and Ambedkar, like the post-independence would not be a better life if it goes to the ruling class. The power goes to the ruling class. That is what their criticism during the freedom struggle. Now we say, okay, save constitution. That means constitution is a product of freedom struggle, and it has to be saved because it is it has an advanced values when compared to the pre-independence situation. So this class is I'm convinced that position of save constitution for me, and also the importance of this constitutional morality, and how we can argue based on the constitution principles. Usually we used to say, okay, this is democracy, all those things, but from now I could give an attempt on upcoming issues, whether we can defend it through constitutional values and constitutional articles. So that practice we have got out of this lectures. And on federalism, on the other side viewpoint, generally people would be critical about Ambedkar. Okay, he wanted though he has a class orientation and he wanted a centralism, but there is another side, and the link between centralization and modernization. The document which you shared for reading, a part of book which has a link between centralization and modernization with respect to the project of anti-untouchability and anti-caste. They wanted a centralization in the constitution. So that is convincing, and so Ambedkar, he has a clear-cut class orientation, but still there is another side which is convincing. Okay, if it is not the case, then the question of untouchability, fighting untouchability, anti-caste, that would have been more difficult if it had not been a centralized constitution, and those values are preserved in the constitution, reservation and act against untouchability, all those things. So though I don't fully agree with that, but still it is a new perspective which I learned from this class. That is the thing. And for the third question, third point which you have mentioned in this message, in some classes I noticed you have given few documents to read, but the classes are not aligned with those documents. In one or two classes I could notice that, okay, we read those things and come, but the classes are not based on those documents. That I could see in 2-3 classes like that. And also the division of time between the lecturers, 3 lecturers in the classes, that is quite random. That is not well designed, that I observed. So if you may consider that. And third point is some places you said court failed, Supreme Court failed when you explain the freedom of expression and certain fundamental rights. In the lectures you say, okay, Supreme Court failed in that, But if there is one class, one lecture, the relationship between during emergency there is a majority judgment, but in 2018 Sanjeev Khanna's position has been agreed in the future. So the relationship between constitution, judiciary, legislative body, and the struggle in the ground and the international scenario, the philosophy, how constitution works. If there is one attempt in one class, then that would be more enlightening to understand why it happens like this now and why like that, to the one attempt towards the philosophy of how constitution works. That would be better. And that's the thing. Arvind presentation and his detailing on is like one after another. He is giving examples, giving scenarios, and explaining things. So that is very much impressive. And but the one thing is, it is quite difficult to follow. Actually, I read his book on undeclared emergency. So that ADM 44 judgment, all those things, I could follow a little bit. Even moreover, I'm from this activism background, but I presume that it would be quite difficult for others to follow that. But I don't know how whether he could slow down his presentation, that is difficult because it is organic way it is coming out. But just I'm just making a comment on that. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade. I am closing here.
Thank you, Senthil. That is quite detailed, yeah.
So I'd like to go next. Abhishek here.
Go ahead, Abhishek.
Yeah. So a lot of interesting things I've learned here. Basically, I'm not from any law background, or I've not had much experience. So then I thought I'll learn about this because I somewhere feel it'd be helpful because I am more into education and I deal with students. So this would be a good topic, interesting thing to teach them. So initially, in the initial classes, the Constitution Assembly debates and all were very exciting, to be honest, because I never thought there would be such arguments in the during those debates, and such kind of points would come up, like Ambedkar criticizing Nehru for giving just that French Revolution, like equality, fraternity, all those quotations, and all that was interesting for me, and it really stuck. And also the one thing that I learned from those sessions was so the context in which the Constitution was written. So just after independence, where there were a lot of social issues. So in that backdrop, when people have sat down to write the Constitution, what they must be thinking, and what must be going through those minds. So I think somewhere those elements you were able to communicate, and I was able to understand that a bit. Next big thing that I came to know is the social morality and constitutional morality. That was also interesting for me. So what we mean by social morality should be constitutional morality. So Constitution has values, and that is what we mean by social morality, and we need to inculcate that. That was very interesting. And again, dissent. I think that was also. I think you had taken this PFI example back then also for while we were discussing dissent. So I'm not able to get the exact phrase, but dissent doesn't mean that you're not obedient or you're not. You use some phrase, I'm not sure what, but yeah. So dissent is different, and being anti-Indian or not anti-Indian, I'm not sure what.
The word is disaffection.
Disaffection, yeah. So dissent and disaffection are two different things, and that was very interesting for me. Next, word of law and the spirit of law. So while discussing, I think 21, Article 21. So uh, the act itself has not been changed, but through judgments, the effect or impact of Article 21 has been widened or broadened. So since independence, how different like interpretation of that article has changed. So that session was also, I mean, that stuck to me. This phrase, uh, word of law and spirit of law. So these were some good insights that I got, and also the case studies. To be honest, it had left more questions than it had answered more questions. I think Saila ji, she used to ask questions, like play the devil's advocate. So because of that, always there were more questions in mind rather than answers. So I mean, those case studies helped me to understand. There are different point of views that you need to take. So, if I'm saying, yeah, the government should do this, then Salaji would say, so then, what about the society? They are, being affected. Then when we talk from the society's point of view, she takes up some other, point of view and argues. So then it is a very dynamic issue, and it changes also happen slow, or, it will happen gradually. This was what my takeaway from those discussions. Uh, and yeah, I think one I wouldn't say feedback, I think it would be my shortcoming. The text was a bit heavy, content was a bit heavy. Initially it was fine, then later I felt the content was a bit heavy, and then I mean, there was a justification given saying we need to talk the language of the constitution, or we need to speak or think in the language of the constitution, which I felt was reasonable. because we all are educated, and that level of expectation is fine, because we have taken interest in knowing the constitution, so it is fair that we try and understand and talk and think in the language of constitution. So I think that is one way, one area where I need to work, thinking and understanding the language of the constitution. Apart from that, regarding the problem that I identified, I mean, I wouldn't say I identified, or one issue that we need to work as a collective is, I'm not sure if it will come under constitutional, or I mean, I've just heard what others have raised, so I'm like, with the disclaimer, I'll also share what I feel should be addressed. So one thing I've noticed, so I work in a NGO here. We train teachers. So basically, a teacher training NGO in Pondicherry. So so we are associated with a lot of schools and teachers and students. So what I've seen is, generally, parents' expectation is way ahead of what the child can do. So be it any what do you say, any level, any socio-economic level or any socio-economic group, parents' expectation from the students are very high. For example, LKG students, UKG students are expected to read, write, on sing a whole poem, or read big stories in English and all of that. Similarly, English medium, there is this uh, not addiction, but this attractiveness for this English medium schools, and parents try to parents take it as a bragging rights, like my child studies in English medium school, he can speak in English. But rather now, after working in education, I've come to know the importance of mother tongue, mother language in the initial phases, how important it is. Based on that, other languages are acquired and all that. So this kind of awareness or information needs to be spread to the larger audience, what is required for the child, what should be expected for the child. Also, the kind of questions parents ask in schools are also very I mean, very hilarious, so what is the right kind of questions that you need to ask to your teacher, to your school? So all of this, I feel this is this is one area where I feel we need to spread awareness among parents, because again, I mean, I believe that education is a very good instrument of social change. So then, if parents are also aware, and they are more involved in the educational process of the child, automatically, what we are discussing, these things might come up. So in education, again, scientific temper, logical thinking, critical thinking, all of these would come only when even parents are also aware of what is being expected, or what education truly means. So then, awareness on this area would be helpful. And I mean, my plan, or what I had thought was, writing some simple articles, or some pieces regarding how about education, and also how language is important, or home language or mother tongue is important in the early stages, and what kind of expectations as a parent we need to have from our children, what are the progression, learning milestones, or level of progression. All of these parents, I mean, educated parents, obviously they know, but parents who are like daily wage laborers, who they send their children to schools, government schools, so they should also be able to get an idea of what needs to be asked, and what should be expected, because they usually try to imitate. So what is the next person next door doing, so is my child able to do that? So then, yeah, if he's not able to do that, then there is this undue pressure on the student as well as the teachers. So even if teachers are saying, no, we need to stop teaching English, we need to bring in, home language first, then we need to transition to English. But ultimately, there is a pressure from the parents saying, ki, no, you need to teach him in English and all that. So that I have seen in Pondicherry, because, all the government schools have been uh, transformed into English medium schools. And now recently, I think 1 year back, all the middle schools, 6 to 8 schools, have been transformed into NCERT syllabus. So initially we were taking up Samachir Kalvi, that is Tamil Nadu board syllabus, but now they have taken up NCERT. So one reason for that change is, parents demanding NCERT syllabus, or English medium. So So then if parents are aware, no, this is not right, I somewhere feel government also would be willing to take up or willing to provide the good education and all that. So this is what I felt. I'm not sure how directly connected this is to constitution and or this session, but this is one area I would feel a lot of work needs to be done, and at a scale, as a collective, this thing we need to work. So thank you.
Thanks, Abhishek. Advika, Abhita.
Can I go? Hello.
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
go
Advika.
ahead.
Actually, I'm a student myself, so some of the topics that did come up in this class are certain topics that I was familiar with. So for instance, let's take like the right to freedom of expression, etc. But the thing is that unfortunately, because of something called the syllabus restriction, we never really get really into the topic. We don't understand why it first came in. It's more like you read like for academic purpose. So in these classes, what I majorly liked is the fact that we started from the very history, be it the debates or the speeches. From there, we slowly got into like the fundamental rights or DPSP, etc. And with the case studies also, I got a lot more context as to like what other people also think. Because right now I feel like my knowledge is very limited to whatever I've learned in class or read about. But then here, when those case studies and other discussions came up, I found like people coming up with perspectives I've never thought of before. So I feel like not just the classes, but the discussions overall also really like gave me a lot of insights that I will be carrying on not just in like my academically, but like even in the future when I pursue law. And some things with regard to the issue part, this may not majorly revolve just around the constitution, but this is something that came up in class recently in a subject called women in law. And I think Salamam also mentioned it earlier about the stereotypes that are still pretty persistent in our system itself. For instance, like not just like against one particular gender, but let's take for example the divorce cases where like a lot of the judgments are against the husbands because of certain like stereotypes that are already like in their head. So when I was thinking about those kind of social issues, I feel like as the society and the way people are thinking and moving changes, the law should change with it. So that was one issue that I was thinking of that needs to be addressed. And I think there was a recent case of a husband suiciding also because of a false complaint against him. So the seriousness of these kind of stereotypes have been increasing. So I think that is an issue that needs to be addressed. And with regard to like whether more children, youth, and students need to know about the Constitution, the fact that I am surrounded by law students, but there's still a lot of people who lack awareness in general. Like they, even though they are studying, they're not very aware of their own rights and what they have, though they are studying about at the moment. So if you look at the people in general, the scenario is worse. Like people might be like suffering like inequality and etc. in their daily life, but they may not be aware of the fact that they can actually, have a remedy for it. So I think it is very important that not just constitution, the people should be in general given some way or the other awareness towards how they can like access their rights and how they can be protected. And with regard to the classes, in the beginning, I was a little bit intimidated because I felt like it was a little hard for me to catch up with what everybody had to say. But overall, in the process, I felt like I was learning more just by listening. And wherever I could, I did try to contribute. So overall, I had a really insightful session these past few weeks. If there was something I would like uh, next time to change is that the previous person also said the same thing. The materials that were given to read were a little heavy for me to like go through, but when they were discussing some parts of it in the sessions, I was able to like understand it and like have something to contribute. But just by reading it, I felt like it was a little hard for me to like comprehend and like actually ponder upon and give opinions about. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Advika.
Can I go next?
Yeah, please, please.
Okay.
Put on your video for the short moment, Geetakshi.
I'm really sorry. I might have to connect my phone for that, so somebody else can go on in the meanwhile, and I can maybe do that if that's okay. Because my laptop doesn't have a functional video camera; it doesn't work.
Okay, doesn't matter. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to begin by saying that these classes I'm really grateful for because the kind of environment that we're in, it's easy or it's natural for one to lose hope about how things can ever get better. But I think I recovered a lot of lost hope from our discussions and from the potential that the Constitution holds. And thanks for that. I think Subhashri also mentioned that the classes gave me a framework, like she said, they gave her a framework to understand things, to make sense of the world around us, to interpret what's happening around us through that framework of the Constitution and of the rights. And it at many moments felt like things clicked, as in, okay, now I know what I was trying to, so from a very intuitive point to now have a solid vocabulary and an understanding of how, making sense of it. Other than that, I was also just in a lot of awe of the Constitution as a document. It's so vast, and I want to take some more time to read it properly, go through the constitutional debates. The word action I want to take based on this and other experiences, it's not very concrete, and this actually was an idea from one of the earlier classes where we were discussing the assembly debates, and I thought that I would like to thoroughly read the debates. I take out what is the gist, the extract, and then maybe make like a comic strip or something that's easily consumable by maybe a younger audience also. I've worked in the education sector before, so my thought goes back to how I can take this to the kids. But then I realized that I want to maybe start by sharing it in all the family WhatsApp groups, because I think that is where the most need of discussions is. I think so. Yeah, nothing too concrete at the moment, but just something that I really want to do, and begin by challenging the status quo around me and at home. There's so much hate spread everywhere, so maybe this will it'll just help somehow. I need to think through that. I heard I'm not talking about some sort of compendium or something. So count me in whenever you do that. I'll also be glad to be a part of it. And a big change is that I'm strongly considering pursuing law within the next 5 years, and I want to really work in the right space properly. So yeah, it was a great experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Geetakshi. Which city do you come from?
I'm from Ajmer. I'm from Rajasthan, but I moved to Jodhpur a couple of months back. So I'm in Jodhpur at present.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your comic strip thing, if you can do, it'll really be wonderful, because like we have
Yeah.
been contemplating it for years, but
Oh.
we don't have the skill or the
Sorry.
So-
No, for sure. I will definitely reach out to you and anybody else in our group who would want to be a part, and we can take it forward.
Actually, you should look at Nanita Haksar's book on
Demystifying.
demystifying law for women. It's on women's rights. It's
Okay, I'm just
it's
noting
in a
that.
comic strip form, and PUCL has one on the terrorist law. Quota.
Okay.
So, I mean, just to give you some kind of an idea about the work done earlier, where there was an attempt made to make law accessible to the ordinary people in an easy format.
So we came out with a
constitutional debates will be wonderful.
Yeah, could you please repeat the name of the author for the demystifying
Nandita Haksar, Nandita.
women's rights book?
Yeah, demystifying laws for women. I don't know if it's still available.
Okay.
Maybe
Nan-
Arvind. We'll check
thank
out.
you, Shantan. Oh, I also really want to thank Shayantan, who was very instrumental in pushing me to stick to the classes because I had a bit of personal upheaval and was thinking of maybe joining the next session, but he motivated me to stay put and give as much time as I could. So thanks, Shayantan, for that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We will share with the WhatsApp group the PUCL booklet on POTA, Prevention of Terrorism Act, which we brought out. The text was written by us. There's a very famous cartoonist called Surendra of the Hindu, who made the cartoons. It's an entire book, very simple to read with cartoons. We can share that with you. Soft copy of it.
Sure, that'll be great. Thanks.
But that's a very interesting idea. Please don't give it up, and please push us and push yourself to do it. Like
Yes.
Sala was saying, for decades we've been talking about a cartoon strip on the Constitution. We've not got around to doing it. So hopefully you will be the one who will push it.
Yes, I hope so too.
Anybody else? Abita?
Yes, sir. Okay. Good evening to all. This is Abita. Through this class, I was introduced to basic laws. Since I have some difficulty with English, I couldn't fully understand the class, but I tried to comprehend as much as I could. The book you provided was very useful to me. Using this book, I got this opportunity to learn about legal matters and basic rights. Thank you, Sayatan and Suresh sir and Arvind sir also. Thank you.
Thank you, Abita. Sandeep?
Yeah. Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to share like my experience throughout this. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, initially I joined this study circle because I was very much impressed by the Kudam that I got to know during my Teach for India fellowship. Like it has been one of my most memorable experiences or workshops that I have ever been. So, and I could say nothing less of this as well. Like everything I learned about our constitution or like history behind it, I think I got more than what I imagined it to be, or like much different, and also in a good way. So initially, I got really hooked, like knowing about our constitution, like the history behind drafting it, and those constitutional debates. And I wondered like why we don't have this approach in schools, like because that's the background I come from, like how. But yeah, that really hooked me. And most sometimes I didn't understand the language, but today I could say like I slightly got to pick up that language, which is helping me understand more of the news that I read, think in different perspectives and all that. And like somewhere in middle, like where we are discussing freedom of speech and Gandhi's dissent, that's where I started. I think it took a little different for me. I mean, I could relate it to it personally. Like I could see how it's impacting our everyday lives from that session on, where how dissent is important and how do we make sure our voice is heard, like in what ways we go about it. I kept thinking about it like throughout after every session after that, like in terms of freedom of religion, what is privacy, and how it's made structurally different in today's context to practice all this, or like to oppose any of us to have to like ask for our rights. Basically, like we are scared of. I keep thinking about like why we are scared of police, or like I mean, where does that fear come from? Like I don't understand. We are doing nothing wrong. Like, why should we be scared? They are the ones who are supposed to protect us. And these kind of thoughts kept repeating throughout the sessions to me. But I think for me, I keep thinking about like how as an individual, like in this urban settings, like in Hyderabad, like where more or less I could call privileged to have like education and work opportunities and all that. Like, how do we take part in it? Like, how do we take part in activism? Like, how do we express our dissent, whether it's online or offline? I really liked like Geetakshi's idea of doing comic strips or like cartoons, so that it will help understand the content in different ways and take it to our workspaces better in other formats as well. I just want like more people to know more about this and feel it as like equally responsible, take responsibility to know about it and understand that it impacts us directly or indirectly. And I don't know. I mean, personally, I would like to like revisit like some of the readings at least before I think this session is over and like have some proper reflections and all that. I would love to do that. I hope I find some time. And as a group, I wonder about this question, like how do we convert online activity into offline structure? Like how do we do that? Because in like whether we plan meetups online, no one shows up here, and it's very difficult to convert that energy into offline, like in whatever formats. Any ideas on that also? I would be happy to take. Thanks everyone. It has been a wonderful journey.
Ravi and Tilo. Ravi, you're on mute.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Last few weeks, this course has been, yeah, very interesting, very difficult also on one side because there's so much reading to do. I was like trying to catch up and just impossible so much reading. But this is as far as the constitution was concerned, I mean, had no idea about these articles that we were talking over the last 2 months. I was even thinking that we had this Indian Penal Code, which has now become something else, and we had no idea what was all this. And without the basic understanding about our constitution, all of this will not make sense at all. So I think overall it's been a very beautifully planned course. It should have been like a full-time course actually, but it's wonderful work done by all of you guys. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but I don't know how to make it put it into practice. One thing that's been on my mind for a long time, being a doctor and hearing a lot of stories from how people get treated in the government hospitals, where I feel right now to actually put it in words, there's no dignity at all. They're not treated with any kind of dignity at all in the government hospitals, or I think even most of the private hospitals. One thing is even till recently, like last week, I heard that our block hospital does not have a chair for the patients to sit. There's no chair or stool for patients to sit. Patients have to just come, stand. No, the medicines are just written and given to them. So even that basic dignity of what their conditions are, how they are examined, no permissions asked. There's a whole lot of material on what we call obstetric violence. How the mothers are being so badly treated during their delivery process and all that. There are so many people talking informally or in informal forums about this, but there's no proper channel or proper way to make it into the public domain. I got this idea of after reading this Sukanya Shanta's work on the caste system in the prisons. I was thinking we should probably have a group. Probably I'll try to find some friends who can collect some material, probably some anecdotes from different patients, and try to see if we can publish it and try to also create awareness about their rights in the healthcare system at least. When they go to a government hospital, what are their rights to that they can claim, that they can question, and all that. So yeah, that's what I've been thinking. because we do have a big number of people who strongly feel about it. Probably just have to put together, start collecting stories or articles or whatever, and try to build up some create more awareness about patient rights. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think Tilo.
Yeah,
I think the idea of patients' rights, especially in the government institutions and also the non-government. What did you say? Obstetric violence. That is
obstetric violence.
New
Yeah,
term.
basically what.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's how mothers are being treated badly in the labor room. They are in the delivery room. They are abused. They are like beaten, sometimes physically beaten, and a whole lot of things that we hear about. Very gory things. Even till 4 days back, we had a mother who had delivered in a hospital here, and she is traumatized. You can actually see she was during that process. So things like that are still happening on a regular basis, even now. So thought, why not create more awareness on that issue? We always keep talking about this in informal circles, but I think there should be some formalized channel to try to create more noise around this thing.
But that's a wonderful location to locate a rights-based intervention. Maybe since Mike is here, both of you are part of the governance thing. Maybe that could be something we could think about in that.
Yeah.
As a direct spin-off from here. We can talk about it later. But I think it's what you have said is very interesting. Tilo, go ahead.
Thanks, Ravi. That was so interesting. It really got me thinking about so many things that I would really like to be part of.
You've been away. You are one. Sorry, friends. I think she's one person who really hates the hospital experience, and you delivered both your children at home. So yeah, very good. Obstetric violence.
Yeah. About the course, I'm really thankful to Shantanu, who I wouldn't have thought about it because I just feel that I already have too much on my plate, and could I take 2 more hours to do something that I'm interested in? And thanks, Shantanu, for actually convincing me that I should do it. And it was well worth it. And I'm quite impressed that I've been able to do this and join in on most of the sessions. I did miss some. I was very stimulated academically, thanks to Arvind, because I left academics many years ago, and to be engaged in that way was very interesting, and especially because it made so much sense now that I'm doing the law course. A lot of things came together in what we have been studying through the courses. I think doing LLB at a later, not a later, whatever, after 15 or 17 years after generally, after how it's generally done, past graduation, and in that order has given me a lot of sense and sensibility in what it actually means to do a course like this, and how I'm also privileged to be part of this program, that I'm able to understand deeper of what I'm learning in those very drab course books. Yet the course books seem interesting to me at this stage of my life because I can connect with it more. From the beginning of the class, I think the Sedition and Gandhi's speech really touched me, on him being arrested under Section 124A, So that was particularly memorable for me. And it was very interesting to know that all the things that we are gushing about and talking so much about, and I mean, I'm not doing much about it, you all are doing so much, but even just having a conversation about were things that have been debated over and over again 75 years ago, and people had already thought about these things. So it makes me feel that we're like going in this loop but not able to come out of it. In that context, SAL and PILs, that session on SAL and PILs was very interesting because I hadn't been exposed to, I wasn't aware of the critique of PILs. And that was very, very interesting to be able to see PIL through a different light altogether. I didn't know of all these, the case laws that, the cases that we were exposed to as part of this program. And also, of course, Sukanya Shanta's case, I couldn't stop myself in the last week to actually talk to anybody that I met about this particular report and what happened after. And having got the PUCL publication on it was also very, very heartwarming in a way that, you know, here you are, a group of people who are working at it every day in spite of having so many other things to do. Suresh and Saila, you all have so much to do, Arvind. You're full time doing academics and teaching, and in spite of that, it's more than anything, I think it's inspiring to know that there are 24 hours in a day that can be used much more than we think. I don't actually have any particular plan of how I'm going to put to use what I've learned and what I've gathered. I feel very tied to all the things that I'm doing. So I just can't go mentally there yet. But I know that it's going to happen and I'll be ready for that in the near future. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks, Tilo. I think almost everybody has spoken or shared. Okay, I think we'll have to thank you all for having been patiently attending all the classes. Mike, you have any last word to say from the participants?
Well, just to thank everybody for allowing me to join and experience all the discussions. And I mean, I can't take it all in, obviously, but it certainly had an impact on me. And yeah, it's definitely affected my thinking. I mean, what picking up on something that Abhishek Menon was saying earlier on. He was talking about parents' aspirations for their children. I don't know whether he's still his name is
there. Is
yeah.
Yeah,
Talking about aspirations, and one of the things that occurred to me when you were talking about that was that, you know, because I've got 4 children, but I've come to think that our aspirations for our children are to be, you know, reproductions of social reproduction, you know, and the Paulo Freire thing has sort of made me realize that we ought to be having maybe, you know, looking for their aspirations rather than fulfilling our aspirations in a nutshell. And I just wondered whether you would have any comment about that, for, you know, from the things that you were saying. I think you said, I think you're a teacher, but you were aware of the aspirations of parents for their children, and yeah, so I wondered if you have any further comment about that.
Yeah, so what I meant by aspirations is so usually they have this conception that, you know, learning English is going to be helpful for the children, and, you know, in the long term,
Yeah.
there are a lot of benefits for of learning English, so which I agree. But initially, so this is the expectation that yeah, English will help in the economic world or in the day-to-day interactions. But then, so this is the understanding. So then, parents expect children to learn, talk, read English from a very young age, like as soon as they are born, or from 3+ or 4+ years, they expect that. But whereas it has been proven that there are a lot of enough research studies, international, national, and a lot of studies that indicate learning in the home language is going to be beneficial for children in all aspects, like cognitive, socio-emotional. All these domains are developed using language and home language, to be more specific. So then what I have seen here is teachers in LKG and UKG grades in government schools, they try to teach in local language and teach songs or stories and all that in local language. But then there is a push from parents saying ki, you need to teach them English. That is why we have come here. If the teachers don't teach them in English, then automatically there is this decline in enrollment in those schools. So automatically parents take their children out and they go to private schools. So automatically enrollment drops. Then schools are merged or shut down. So there is a so then out of fear of that, what teachers do is because obviously if the schools are closing down, employment, all of that will become a question. So then they succumb to this pressure and they start doing teaching in English and all of that. So I was thinking one more example is age 3 and 5, the fine motor development is not there, not yet developed in children. So their fingers are not capable of holding a pen and writing in small spaces. But parents expect that children should speak, children should start writing from the like first day of school. So then for them to develop those fine motor, you need to give some time. So there is like 6-8 months you need to give there, where they play with the clay, they handle different objects, and slowly that fine motor is developed. So this element also parents fail to understand. So then what I was thinking is such things, such information, if we are able to disseminate to parents in a obviously middle class parents or educated parents, for them to understand this is very easy. But for so most of the government school children are coming from a very underprivileged or not so privileged backgrounds. So then for those parents to understand, most of them are first time school, first time what do you say, first yeah, they are coming for the school for the first time, and their parents are not educated. So in those scenarios, helping them understand is a bit of a challenge. And I would feel some articles or some infographics about these and sharing it. Actually, we have already started here. So here there is this ECCE day program. So every month, one day we call the parents, like in schools they call the parents and they show the teachers show the parents what has been the progress for the month, what all activities they have done. So in those small meetings, we share with the parents, what needs to be expected and not. But not only in Pondicherry, if it has to be done at a larger scale, something in writing needs to be sent out, and it should be shared with the parents, is what I felt. I'm not sure, Michael, is if this is what you were thinking of, but what I meant was this examples, and this is what I meant. So parents' expectation, and I think it can be extrapolated. Like I mean, after you said, I'm thinking
Abhishek,
same things can be extrapolated. Yeah.
Abhishek, Mike was talking about the other side. What are the expectations of the children, the students? He's
Right.
coming.
Okay.
I think this discussion, many people in this group are from similar backgrounds like you. Everybody will jump in. We need to end by 10. So
Sure.
discussion can continue, which is what Satya says, that so we'd like to continue this discussion beyond this. But yeah, the Freire study class, which Mike is also attending, which we are conducting, that's on Friday. So Vikash is there from our group who's conducting that group. So maybe you could think of talking to them about that class. So you might find it interesting.
Sure.
Sorry, I butted in, but you want to.
No, I think he would definitely. I think Abhishek. I wasn't sure whether Abhishek was actually in the Paulo Freire group. I wasn't.
No,
sure.
he's not there. He's not there.
Okay. Yeah.
Shakti,
But
very
definitely- yeah.
Shakti, very briefly about your bringing in Vinay, Arvind's friend, to talk about the constitution thing in MSSW.
You're asking me to share about that?
Very briefly, yes.
Okay. No, actually, we were very glad to meet Vinay and know about his work. It was very interesting and intricate work he was doing. So when he came to collaborate with us at MSSW, he made a presentation. It was very interesting. He jumped directly into the present scenario and he connected that with the constitution and how it is violated and all that, with all pictures and various happenings across the country. He brought out various scenarios and he connected that with constitutional violations. So it was very well received by students and others presented there. And the display also was very interesting. Everybody looked at it and the Constituent Assembly debates, he made it as posters and displayed it. And he brought other stuffs also, like posters for sale and t-shirts and all that. It was very welcoming by students and others. And continuously after that also, we are in touch with him. This Constitution Golu he was doing. So some dolls based on Constitution was made, and the preamble was made in different languages, and he included along with the Constitution Golu and all that. So all that people from our group and other known groups, whoever likes whatever concepts, they are still in touch with Vinay and following it up. I think Vinay is not there today. So
Thanks, Shakti. Arvind, Sayantan.
I mean, I don't have much to say. I think all the heavy lifting Suresh Haile and Arvind did, I think. So really grateful for them to take out the time to anchor this class. I think what Shakti mentioned, that particular session I also happened to attend. And I remember having a cup of tea with Vinay after the session. And we were just ideating about having a class with all of these with people. And I think it took many months, but I think finally this is the class that sort of began and sort of ended with a bang. So I think I'm feeling very happy and also feeling very privileged to have been a part of this session, because more than anything, it also gives a sense of renewed hope that there is an audience, there is a wide range of people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, who no matter what still want to engage with something sort of as banal as Constitution and still find enough meaning to take it forward. I think that in itself is such a joy to experience, and I hope many of you will also sort of join us in conducting the next set of classes as we take this thing forward. So yeah, I think just thanks from my side to all of you.
Yeah. Before Arvind, Vikash, want to share anything? He's also part of both the organizing group and.
No, I have not been able to follow the sessions regularly because of the Freire one. But I'm glad that some of the people who are in Freire Center are also here, and they're making drawing connections between the Freire Circle and the Constitution. And I think it will be very interesting to see how we will take Constitution forward in a very relevant way to the people. And thanks everyone for being part of this journey, and hope we'll see or make avenues for further engagement in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikash. Over to you, Arvind.
Thank you for all your comments. And I took it down. Actually, there are around 30 comments, which all of which one can try and all of which one could potentially respond to, but I don't think we have the time to do that. But just make a couple of quick observations. Firstly, I think all of you said thank you. I should also say thank you, because I think each course or each class is an opportunity for you to do something different which you hadn't done, and to learn something which you hadn't really learned about. And for me, I think the things which were reinforced in some senses is that the question of teaching the Constitution is really about engaging deeply with the Constitutional Assembly debates. I think that point was there as a kind of we just done it before, but now I'm convinced that we really have to have that as a central part of any course we take going forward. And linked to that is the other point, which is that, very often we're so used to reading secondary literature. Somebody said this about Ambedkar, somebody said this about Gandhi, etc. Nobody's ever read the original pieces, And so I think our effort, again, which I think is very valuable, is people read the text in original and they'll make up their own minds, You don't need some one of us 2 bits giving us your opinion on what we think of Gandhi or Ambedkar. You read Gandhi and Ambedkar on your own and you make up your mind. And that's, I think, the second point of method which came across, I think, to me at least quite strongly. And I think also thanks for the comments on the Sukanya Shanta. I was also pushed to read that case again, pushed by Kavita, who said you better do an article for this with the PUCL bulletin. And so I had to read the judgment. I read the judgment and I said, it's such a, I was thinking to myself, just as you all guys were thinking, I hadn't read it, till the 2 days before we did the class. I had not read the judgment either, So I said, there's so much. There's always a occasion to learn more. And because we were doing this class, that was the opportunity to also read up and to present it. And to present it means you read it a little more closely. So I think I benefited a lot from, again, because of your class, to go back, or not to go back, to read that judgment actually for the first time. Then among the range of comments you all made, right? I think one point which stood out to me is, of course, the fact that, that the content is very useful. The content is very useful in terms of it gives people possibly, right, languages or arguments or ways of responding or ways of thinking, and that people seem to have taken to it. And I think that is very, very appreciable, very, very useful to know. Then the other question which I guess links to Sharadan's always point, which is the question of hope, right? Apart from the question of content, what is the emotions which a course like this can potentially do, and the idea that it helps build a sense of hope. And how does it build a sense of hope? Again, that was interesting to me. You all felt, I thought, right? Hope. One part of hope comes from thinking of everything in forms of a tradition, in terms of a history, right? The fact that you're not the first person thinking that it's okay to express a dissenting opinion. Gandhi thought of it much, much before in time, and you're a part of that historical legacy, that part of that tradition. And to see yourself in that light again gives you a sense of hope, or a lesser sense of loneliness. And the second part of hope, of course, is the fact that, as you indicated, you're not alone in the sense that, the range of people in this room, obviously in this room, online room, who think similarly and who feel that they have similar thoughts and similar things to do. So that's the other question which I felt is useful. Then the last point which I'll make is how do we, I made this point already, the question of taking this forward, right? And I think that's useful. Perhaps one part of it is we can think of some kind of I was thinking, right? I mean, Suresh made the point of the PUCL statement. PUCL, of course, there's not a PUCL propaganda space, but just to make the point that we do have a regular bulletin which comes out. So if everybody is comfortable or would like to, then we can add you to Suresh's mailing list. So you get, I mean, not every day, but once a month at least. Once a month, definitely. You get the PUCL bulletin, which gives you an updated sense, right, of how you think about contemporary issues from the perspective of human rights. That's I think it's, for me, it's a very useful frame to have, right? And because you see the news all the time, but suddenly here's another frame, how to think of the news from the perspective of human rights. And of course, the PUCL statements also comes up, which again gives you a sense of how to think about issues from a human rights perspective. So that's one kind of a concrete way of keeping that knowledge context going. Might be through, if you guys are interested, we can add you to, Sharadan, we can add everybody to Suresh's group. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Arvind. Saila?
Yeah, I mean, I think Arvind has addressed most of the issues. He's essentially spoken for all of us. But I think personally for me, after, after 35 years of, going to courts and arguing, there was some kind of a fatigue which has set in, in terms of, badgering our heads against issues for which there are no solutions. Because sometimes when I look back, I said, like, the time from I enrolled and now after 35 years, we are still trying to, make the judges understand the very same issues that we, started with. So sometimes there is a fatigue which sets in, and I think it is these kind of classes which also kind of energizes us in terms of, taking inspiration from actually the spirit of the law. Because day in and out when we are fighting in courts and, you very often losing battles or which appear to be, just the prolonged time that takes into it, it can be very energy depleting. So these sessions for me essentially was, again, going back to being a student in many ways and rereading many things or, at least recalling the freshness of these ideas, which I had when I joined the bar or when I was a law student, when I really started looking at law in a very political way. There's this sense of, suddenly a world opening up before you. You're suddenly able to make sense of so many things, which until then didn't even register with you. So there was a joy in discovering the world anew. And I think each time, these classes very often brings back that joy in me when I share it with, all of you. So that way, I think it is, for me, it is very, very re-energizing. And as Arvind said, of course, each time when you revisit something, when you reread something, it's something fresh again. It makes you rethink again. And as like all of you, Sayantan, as everybody's been saying, it brings back hope in us also, that yes, not all is lost. And yes, there are more people, youngsters especially, when we see the younger generation also having a thirst to learn about the Constitution and feeling that there is a relevance in. See, one thing I've always maintained is that law is a very, very empowering subject. I always maintain that law should never be confined to courts. It should be there among the citizens. But we didn't have the tools to take it among the citizens. Or rather, we didn't invest sufficient time and energy in that. And that is a gap which I always feel that, that we have failed to do that. And having the privilege of knowing law, understanding law, working with law, I feel, we owe it that, we should take it to the people because it's empowering everyone. And I hope that these classes, will take this journey forward and we'll be able to engage with a lot more number of people. But I think it also, again, depends upon, because we really don't know how to reach out to more new people. So I think that is one thing maybe each one of you can help us in terms of how do we expand this group so that we take it, to a larger audience. Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody. I don't have much. I'm obviously very thrilled and happy that we are able to finish this whole batch. Coming once every week for about 16 weeks is not a joke. It takes a tremendous amount of commitment on your parts, and the fact that 20 of you have been coming, not 20, about 30 of you have been quite regular out of about 45 who joined up is a very inspiring thing. Also goes to show that we need to have more of these things. I'd just like to say that, first say thanks to every one of you for being part of this. And of course, Uday as the youngest person and Advika as one of the youngest student, a law student who's been part of this. Our hopes are all with you all for you to take it forward. I think we will be able to do a lot more. Satya has said that she would like to be part of any process that we go forward. That's fantastic, Satya. And a number of you have also said, Sandeep has also said Abhishek has said. There are a lot more things that we can do. Perhaps if we can figure out some way in the WhatsApp group about how we can continue to keep the flame of hope alive, and how we can keep the hope in nothing and pass on this flame to other people. I think that's extremely important in today's times. That we need to make sure that our sense of hope doesn't get extinguished, and that we light more people. And the more darker the political situation, the more strident we should be in terms of going forward. I think we have no real choice on that matter, and we need to go forward. And I'm not surprised every time we create a forum like this that many more people come say we want to go. It's the challenge is how do we all come together to take it forward. I can only offer 2-3 things. Some of you are from various other cities. I stay in Chennai. You have Geetakshi who's in Jodhpur. Many of you others seem to be in the south. But if you are planning to take this thing forward, please do count on us to give you support, intellectual support, material support from wherever we are. And I think as a community, as the Kodam, we should be able to help each other. I think that's how we visualize this whole thing, that this doesn't end up with one more study class with some certificate given on, but this is something which is to do about our own lives and how we are going to change the way that we are working in whatever small part of the world that we are part of. The issue is not whether we are already into activism. The issue is that wherever we are, we can have this approach and not keep it hidden in our minds, but something that we talk about. It has to become part of our language. It has to become part of our discourse. It also has to become part of our action day to day. We had started this bringing home the Constitution as a training program for teachers. So Abhishek, Sandeep, Satya, you might be interested in knowing more about it, and Geetakshi also. We had started a course in which Sendil around. Yes, Sendil is around. We had taken this forward. We had a 1-year-long program, which went off very interestingly. So we worked with teachers on the constitutional values that you all have gone through 3-day workshops. And then they decided how they would take those training, the insights learned through games to their children. Some very, very interesting experiences and exercises got evolved. We hope that it will be, we can take it forward again. So if any of you are working, please do get in touch with us. Whatever resources we have, whatever experience, insights we have, we would be delighted to share with you. Okay. So I would like to just say thanks to all of you once again. And hopefully we'll be in touch once in a while. Yeah. Good night then.
Before you log off, is it possible to come on camera for one group picture as we end the class?
Yeah, that will be nice. And Uday, if he's still not sleeping, for the picture, Uday.
Yeah, as many cameras on as possible.
And Saintan, will that drive will be there? Because some of the resources I want to read.
Yes, obviously. Yes, it will be there. You'll have access to it.
We'll make sure that all of them are up, Sakti.
Did we all smile?
Yeah, that's nice back. Okay. Sandeep, Tilo, Geetakshi, Abhita, and Nandini. For a moment.
Okay, say cheese. Sorry, say Constitution.
Constitution, okay. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.